No one is free until we are all free. I say to thee, welcome everyone. Welcome back to the Crypto, Bitcoin, Ethereum, Private, Decentralized Infrastructure Show. I am Chair. I'm here to prop you up. With me, as always, is Sterlin. Sterlin, hello. How are you today?
Man, my friend, I'm doing well, We just got out of that space, but I'm feeling pretty damn good, brother. Got the juices flowing, coffee rocking and roll. There's the camera. My camera's changed locations. It's good. Yeah, man, how are you?
I'm good. I have an unidentified liquid in my cup, and it is dark purple. And that's just how I roll. Yeah, so there was a fun space today, and I do see the attention increasing for logos, and people are becoming aware of what logos the technology stack is, what logos the social movement is, and as the testnet phase of the blockchain is now rolling, and the alpha version of the logos core applications are rolling. I think it's a perfect time for people to start paying attention to the logos movement and tech stack. It behooves you to participate now, as you're still early, and we're both logos contributors, you and I, Sterlin. So certainly we have a unique motivation for people, and sort of desire for people to learn about it. So probably a large part of the Crypto, Bitcoin, Ethereum, Private, Decentralized Infrastructure Show with Sterlin and Chair will cover a lot of logos related items. But we can certainly get into whatever topics the audience, our beloved audience, would like to get into. And you can use the chat, folks, if you are watching wherever you might be watching. Use the chat. We can see it. We will field your questions as long as they're useful or funny. Either or. Same weights applied. But it's actually, we're approaching now. I think I began contributing to logos more than 3 years ago at this point, which, man, time flies. Actually, no, I think it's been about 3. I don't think it's just coming up on 3 years. And things have certainly evolved since then, and I hope that I've evolved as a human being in a positive direction since then, but that's maybe not for me to decide, but for others to decide. And I think more or less you and I have been, I think you were around a little bit before I showed up. But what a journey it has been, and certainly the overall objective of logos more or less has been the same, but sort of how it's being approached and how it's being delivered has changed. Now the structure is more or less sort of set and aligned, and things are moving. But there is a lot going on. Just on the tech side, there's like five different areas of focus, but all of it, of course, is to sort of support the parallel society, civil, creating a better structure for civil society going forward, rather than using the legacy, outdated, broken, and last but foremost, corrupt nature of the systems that humans must rely on a day-to-day basis. And it makes it very exciting, this work that is happening, at least for me.
Yep, and you're correct. I think I just recently had my quote unquote 3-year anniversary with Logos. So I've been at it for a while. It's kind of funny though. First I'll say this. I don't join organizations or get involved with projects unless there is a strong value share or value alignment, right? I often say I'm not here because I have to be. I'm here because I want to be, because I very much resonated with the identity of Logos, the foundational principles and philosophy, and of course, Jared and Carl, who founded Logos. I've spoken with both of those guys, and we very quickly understood that we shared, common ground in terms of the future, where we're headed, and also philosophical principle, generally speaking. So I was like, fuck yes, this is the community that I want to be part of. Now, this speaks to a bit what you were saying, Chair, and it's really important, I think, to consider. When I came onto Logos, I was a very dyed in the wool uh, anarcho-capitalist, voluntarist, and I have evolved. I'm not going to say I've changed. That wouldn't be the right word, but I have definitely evolved my perspective since then. Uh, because I think the philosophy behind parallel societies, by virtue of it being an exit ideology or an exit philosophy, naturally tends to break down rigidity in terms of personal philosophies. So the point that I'm getting at here is I'm extremely grateful to have found Logos, because it has allowed me to actually grow as a person, right? Not just professionally or in a business sense. That happens too, of course. But that happens with any organization you work with, I think, or it should if you're staying there. But growing philosophically and growing internally and intrinsically as a person is something that's really important for me. And that's the reason why I want to get involved with certain organizations and certain movements. We only live once, right? Unless Brian Johnson has has his way, maybe life is just eternal, right? But if you're gonna do something that you love and that you cherish and that is really sacred to yourself, and then push that forward as quickly as you can. But ultimately, at the end of the day, it's still about, the core libertarian principles and philosophies haven't changed. Ultimately, what these movements are about, and I think this is largely the ethos that circles the orbit of crypto, generally speaking, is about freedom, liberty, and human flourishing over the long term.
Yeah, sorry, I starting to get some pings on the other side. Yeah, I have felt the change within myself as well. I think it's you. There's no if you're entrenched within. Not even entrenched. Maybe entrenched is the wrong word. Like we're all a product of our influences, right? Like I think the cliche term is like you are the average of your 5 best friends or the 5 people that you spend the most time with. That's basically, given enough time, you will begin to reflect those viewpoints and take those positions almost subconsciously or unconsciously start to adopt those things. So like we should always be careful and selective if we can about the influences that we allow into our lives, but we don't always have that option. In fact, I would argue most people, probably most humans, the population of the earth, don't have the option to curate exactly who they interact with and work with on a daily basis, which is an interesting thing to think about. But um, the original, and this is something that I harp on a lot, but the initial motivator and inspiration for me to contribute or even pay attention to at all to crypto, though I was aware of, Bitcoin coming out and the price of it and the opportunities and then the missed opportunities and blah 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 to that end, I did not become inspired by the potential that crypto and blockchain tech and decentralized peer-to-peer tech offered until it was explained to me that a more corruption resistant system can emerge from it. It can be the foundation for a more fair, just, open, and corruption resistant type of system. And it's from my perspective, corruption is, if we had to single out one thing about humanity and human systems, what's wrong with things, it would be corruption, as it poisons like a baby snake anything that it touches eventually. And corruption is often a banal thing. It seems very It is very accepted in a lot of places because in most cases, a lot of people are just born into or walk into or adopt corrupt systems because you don't really have a choice. And the banality of evil is something I've been thinking about a lot lately. And Sterlin, it's something that I hear you talk about a lot. In that, it doesn't happen over one day or 1 year or one decade or even one century, but eventually, like an effective Chinese water torture, drip, 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 the banality of evil takes over and takes hold and harnesses the system, and slowly people become less aware that even there is an option for anything else. And for whatever reason, I was aware of the darkness and the corrupt actually, I know, I probably know why. It's because I'm a product and a child of Soviet refugees and refugees of communist totalitarian states. And so they always had a very pointed and specific view and perspective on corruption and what it ultimately results in people's lives. And like a lot of people benefit from corruption until they don't. And and once you don't, then you're often, those who benefited at one time from corruption, that same corrupt system will swallow them, digest them even faster than those who don't take part in it, let's say. So the opportunity that originally I felt like Ethereum provided in a lot of ways, the spark of what Logos is building is all rooted in the 2014 white paper ethos of Ethereum. Unfortunately, the leadership of Ethereum decided that only 1/3 of the protocols that were defined in the white paper were worthy of the core devs and Ethereum Foundation's support. And as such, Ethereum became uh, the traditional bank chain of choice for and government chain of choice because of its open nature and lack of privacy, and because those two other protocols that I mentioned, which had privacy embedded as the first word of the definition of each of those protocols, Swarm, private peer-to-peer decentralized storage, stopped being supported. Whisper, private peer-to-peer decentralized messaging and data transport, stop being supported for whatever reason. For whatever reason. So that potential that Ethereum once had fell away. And it was discovered that it was very difficult. It's not impossible. And projects like Railgun have done an amazing job of bringing the optionality of privacy specifically with your token interactions, your DeFi interactions to Ethereum. But it is very, very difficult to do so. And there is no privacy for node runners on Ethereum. There's no privacy for block proposers on Ethereum. And oh, by the way, there's only two companies that build all of the blocks on Ethereum. And those are multi-million-dollar companies that I would wager like 98% of Ethereum users have no idea that they even exist, or that every single transaction is being routed through those two very corporate entities. So contributing to Logos, or at least the fact that Logos exists, I could not, I'm not aware of a more aligned project to like what I would like to see come out as a result of these technologies being developed. Maybe DarkFi, but those are really that's it. Because for all of the promises, now Monero is great and Zcash are great, but those do not have the features that Logo. Those are crypto tokens, and they have their use cases and functionality, but Logos is a full-fledged technology stack, and it's built to support not just like the financial and economic, like the settlement layer of things, like, okay, I've sent you some tokens and now you have them, and everyone has reached consensus on the state of things. Okay, great. But everything that leads up to that transaction, the lack of privacy and everything that leads up to that, including the lack of privacy for the transaction itself, unless you're on Monero or Zcash or using Railgun on Ethereum. Like otherwise, you can have no expectation of privacy or anonymity, really. And that It bars a lot of people from participating in a meaningful way in systems that can replace these corrupt, broken, dark, dare I say evil in a lot of ways, systems that humans are forced to rely on. And I'm trying to be politically correct. I don't know why. I'm usually not, but here we are. Here we are.
Yeah, that was exquisitely said, Chair. I caught 3 pieces of this conversation. I want to try to I want to try to add my 2 cents on all the topics. So the first one is on corruption and how and the nature of corrupt systems. I have a lot of thoughts on this particular topic. And then number 2 is thinking about the direction that Ethereum went and why it went that way and what happened to that ecosystem. And then Logos, of course, as being a solution or an outcome. So we're moving from the social cultural to the technological, but of course the socio-cultural is always involved. So when thinking about corrupt systems and why they corrupt, the first thing that comes to my mind is Lord Acton's quote, right? Absolute power corrupts absolutely. But I think there's an even better quote by the author of Dune, right? Frank Herbert. He said it's not that absolute power corrupts absolutely, it's that absolute power is magnetic to the corruptible. And I thought that was an interesting way to put it because there's a lot of truth that I think these systems that we're embedded in structurally, they act as a gravitational force for pathological personalities. And this is just the nature of a system that is designed with zero-sum game theoretic interactions, which just means that everybody involved in this system, it's a hierarchy. So that means if you can work your way to the top of it's centralized, right? This is another point, a key word. It's a centralized hierarchy. In the context of these structures, the individuals are vying for positions of power, influence, prestige, capital, ROI, whatever it is, they're vying for that. And so what that means is that they're going to be sacrificing any form of collective good, right? Any form of social good for their own personal well-being. And of course, if you're a pathological personality, you're probably really good at playing finite games. What I mean by that, you can go into this system and you can see it as a winner takes all kind of system. And so you're meticulously clawing your way to the top of that system, trying to gain control and access, because you gain access to that power prestige. And this is why corruption happens in these systems. It's because the affordances of these systems are genuinely they genuinely cater to these types of interaction dynamics, because corruption is just another form of power playing to get to the top of the system. And it like just naturally, if the incentives aren't built into a system that prevent that, right? And I don't make a case to build incentives that work in a top down, heavily centralized system that's based on politics or bureaucracy, right? There's a lot of people who say corruption is inevitable or it's just part of the human makeup or human species. I think that that's false. I think that's one of the reasons that we experiment with different kinds of crypto governance schemes, different types of coordination dynamics and mechanics, is because this is largely an unsolved problem. This is not to say that it will never happen in a system that is more decentralized or based on peer-to-peer dynamics or that prioritizes collective good, right? Corruption can and likely will still occur, but it's at what level, right? Because we have to fully understand the reasons why systems go down to the path of corruption. And I think it's very seriously the way that these systems are designed. If they're designed around zero-sum game playing and like winner take all mindsets, then very naturally that system is going to decay and corrupt. So what I'm providing here is an outline, like an ontology of how these kind of systems evolve, right? And why they attract corruptive personalities, pathological personalities, and why they tend toward these dynamics, and why so many people get hurt as a result, and why they spin out so many externalities downstream and cause so much harm. This is why It's because of the way that the systems are structured and designed. And some people will make the case, and I might be among them, that these systems were purposely designed with this kind of structure in mind to benefit the small minority at the expense of everyone else. The bottom rung of that hierarchy are those not even involved in the game. All are just basically extractive resources that get churned through this machine at some point. Okay, so there's that. This is why we see corruption everywhere. It's not something that's inevitable, in my opinion. It's something that we can stop. And this is why we have experiments in parallel societies. As we mentioned, experiments in crypto, experiments in governance and coordination. Even if people don't actually understand the why of what's happening in crypto and parallel societies, this is one of the reasons right here that we're, in my opinion, of why we're doing this. Now, to your point on Ethereum, I think one of the biggest problems that we have in crypto, generally speaking, is that a lot of people, they see very clearly that crypto systems have a capacity to dethrottle the extractive mentalities, the exploitative mentalities, the tendency toward hierarchy. Like structurally, these systems can be built in a mathematically secure, anti-fragile sort of way that can be built to prevent that. So there's a lot, as a result of that, there's a lot of panic internally with these pathological personalities. And so these folks very arduously work toward trying to hijack. We talked about hijacking last time. They work to try to hijack or try to move these platforms in a different direction to prevent them from creating or engendering a game playing environment that's more equitable or more fair, or at least on an even keel, right? And I think this is one of the problems, at least coming from a sociological game theoretic perspective, why the Ethereum community has so many problems. Some of it also simply has to do, and this is actually part of the game playing, has to do with like commercial expediency. Projects that go completely cypherpunk or go completely private, Monero is a good example of this, find it tremendously difficult to get any kind of really market traction or market share. We see this, right? I mean, a perfect example is the delistings that Monero has experienced. This is not to say that it has detracted from the community that Monero has is extremely pious, for lack of a better phrase, to the gods of privacy and decentralization and crypto anarchy and those kind of things. But you make a sacrifice at the altar of this god, and you sacrifice in it like a lot of commercial traction as a result of that. And this also mixed in with the fact that doing privacy tech from a technological perspective is very difficult still to make easily usable. And arguably, Monero is still not always easily accessible to a layperson, not really accustomed or acquainted to crypto. To your point, right? So I think that the writing largely was on the wall for a lot of these projects that started getting market share and getting an eye on them and growing. Ethereum and Bitcoin are the main ones. And so they fell victim to cultural forces around predatory behavior to help push these in a certain direction to maximize profit for a small group of individuals. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah,
Oh, you hit it. I think you're right on, and it's something I've never been able to express it maybe as eloquently as you just did, but it's something I've been aware of for years now. In that, new people come into when new people become aware of crypto, um, and I've had more experience with Ethereum than any other movement or network, so I can use that as an example. But if you came in, the vast majority of users that have already come and left, by the way, came in around COVID times, right? 2020, where it was completely acceptable and okay to launch Fugazi Fakakta NFTs. And then that evolved into tokens. Everyone became an art collector. All of a sudden, everyone cared about rarity of their generated pixel NFTs. And what people were exposed to were shills, paid actors, scenarios where you're in a Twitter space There's 50 people in there, and 49 of them are in a group chat coordinating together to scam the one person that's organically there, while creating a facade and the illusion that all of these people and users are unique individuals that, you know, that came together organically. It was not the case. So a lot of people were tricked, and a lot of people learned that, oh, it seems to be that the successful people, the people that are making any profit on anything, are acting in this certain way, selling bullshit, selling bullshit NFTs, selling bullshit tokens, bullshit DAOs, but seemingly we're having some measurable amount of success. So people who were not bullshit artists, who were not scammers, um, began mimicking the behaviors of those who they deemed successful. But the only people, or the vast majority of the people, like the Yuga Labs people and the whole universe that surrounds them, is just built uh, on bullshit, and worse, like rampant, like, and much worse for specifically to that example. But it's all designed to extract your money, your value away from you and towards the people in charge. So people started, and I literally, I mean, I saw this happen with a number of people, like coming in from a neutral place, coming into the space, observing how the shills and scam artists work, and starting to adopt their means of operating without realizing the road that you're walking down, without realizing that you are being trained to become the huge piece of shit that most of these people are. And you know exactly who you are. And I'm talking specifically to you. Shame on you, and may God have mercy on your soul for the amount of people that you have scammed. Um, but I saw that take effect. So it's like the behavior that was being rewarded was really shady behavior. And so, like, you and I host a space every week and have to repeat every week. Do not come up here and start shilling your token. Do not come up here and start talking about your bullshit project. Do not come to this space to farm human beings that you are setting up to scam down the road. And and just as a word of warning to most people that might not be aware, like, almost everything that you see in terms of engagement and activity in the crypto world is fake. Projects that have whatever their stated objective is, the only real objective is to take whatever value you might have and extract it into their possession through tokens, NFTs, organizations, groups, charities, so on and so forth. For the hundreds, if not thousands, of operators that I've operated, whatever, people that I've seen active in the space, there is a tragic few, like literally probably can only count on one, maximum two hands, the number of people who are honest, have a good track record with no scammy weirdness in their past, who are still active and operating today. One nice thing, though, that because AI has taken over the dominant narrative, or has become the dominant narrative and replaced crypto, is a lot of those scammers went towards AI. And our congratulations to them. And we don't want you back. But they will be back because crypto flows in cycles, and it ebbs and flows like the tide. It goes in and then it goes back out. And we're in maybe a high or a low tide moment right now. I would say it's time to get your clamming boots on and go get some mussels and oysters and whatnot, because the water has receded, but it will be back. Like the waters of Fukushima, they will come rushing back in, and it'll take 50 brave souls to save the reactor and the population of Japan. That's a little March 11th, 2011 humor for you. But I digress. The point is that be very, very careful, even from me, and especially, I would say, be skeptical of me first. Start the muscle, start flexing the muscle, and start being very, very skeptical of me, of Sterlin, of everything we say. Question it, try to verify it, call out the bullshit if you see anything. and start using that for everyone that you're filtering and processing, every article, every seemingly honest X account, because like the sad truth and reality is the dominant majority, the vast majority of actors in the crypto space are bad actors. And a lot of them don't even know it, to kind of put a button on this point. They have just absorbed the tactics and nature of those who they have observed having some measure of success. And I don't know, it's very sad. Like there's communities and groups that, you know, some people learn and some people don't. And I see a lot of, I unfortunately see a lot of people going back to weird old scammy ways. And I mean, I've even seen like the same scam by the same people didn't even bother changing their identities. They just moved it to a different chain and kept the same scam going. And it's very sad. So be careful out there, folks, and don't start mimicking the behaviors of those who you seem to be having success until you verify that it is actually successful and that it's not a insidious, evil, weird, dark thing that you're taking part of or pushing on people. Oh man, that's a high horse I climbed on top of, a Clydesdale. A Clydesdale even. Shout out to Meefs, who has been around forever, who is who's a nice person, and I'm very glad that he is watching. Hello, Meefs. I don't know, Sterling. I'm bloviating all over the place today, so apologies if it's hard to if it's hard
This
to tag onto that.
I feel like the rant and the monologue, the beautiful monologue that you just went on just now is one of the reasons why you and I can share a space together, because this is a topic that I think that we both feel passionate about. Because arguably the schemes and the scamminess of the space have put the space behind some number of years. Combine that with what we talked about last time, the block wars, the block size wars, and the hijacking of Bitcoin, like the combined impact of both of these issues, right? The hijacking plus the shenaniganry, I like that. I just created that word, right? Have
Word of the day.
created have created a situation where a lot of people have become completely skeptical of crypto, and it's really been mainly associated with scams and schemes and debauchery and nonsense. And if you're from the perspective of a government agency, like an alphabet soup agency, this is like mission accomplished, right? If your goal is to create internal strife in an ecosystem because you can't directly like hijack the technological infrastructure, not directly per se, then what you can do is cause social discord in communities. And there's actually a case, I can't remember all the details off the top of my head, but there was a case recently where the feds were actually printing out their own shitcoin and then using it the FBI using it to scheme. This was, I think, gosh, we'll have to look that up. But I read about it recently in a news article. And of course, this should come as no surprise to anybody who pays attention, because the goal of these agencies is to create environments of entrapment, and also if they want to destabilize the ecosystem and make it more stable for the political social engineers or for folks who have exploitative mindsets, then they're 100% going to do that. There's another kind of irony embedded in this, though, that I think bears speaking to, and this is coming from the people who do critique crypto as a result of all the scams and schemes. It's ironical because where that may be true, right? It's obviously not all of crypto, but it's largely true. But it's also true that if you're gonna critique crypto for its schemes, look at the fucking banking apparatus and the fiat system as well. Like it actually should make more sense if you understand that all these people are trying to grift in crypto. What makes you think that some guys who are pulling the levers of power and have a little red button they can press to print out as much money as they want aren't trying to scheme and to grift you, right? So we have to definitely be able to see the forest for the trees, though. Understand that like anything that confers value, right, and provides economic incentives and that can line people's pockets is going to be a target of scammers and grifters. So at least we can say this about crypto. We have an open environment where people can get involved, whether it's with something that's schemy or whether it's something that's legitimately. Of course, it's up to a person to do their own due diligence. But these people should also, they should say, well, they shouldn't just blanket ban mentally, right? Ban crypto mentally in their head as being relevant or valid, and then go and just do nothing but use fiat currency, because that's one of the largest scams that has ever been created, right? And we can get into the economic and the political details of how this functions. Yeah, maybe I'll get into it a little bit. We have time. But the purpose here is to say that you should definitely 100% consider the fact that the system is also broken, right? So learn to do due diligence in the space, understand what is meaningful and what works and what is legitimate in the crypto space for you personally. And I would also say that one of the things that has driven me, and we talked about this, Chair, is like the values or the philosophies where the original cryptocurrency ecosystem stems from, and that's the cypherpunk, that's the crypto anarchist values. Originally, crypto was a political movement. The motivations were creating systemic change through disintermediating, right, the financial system. This is why in the Genesis block of Bitcoin, it is etched "Chancellor on the brink of second bailout" by Satoshi Nakamoto. That is a political statement. That's saying we don't need to rely on these systems to provide financial responsibility or to control our money. The idea is that we take that power back into our own hands. And in this context, I also think that a lot of the grifting, a lot of the scheming, this goes back to my earlier comment about that Fed story. There have been purposeful attempts to hijack the space, not only socially, but also to create to poison the well, right? To create a toxic vision of the space that keeps as many people away from it as possible, and or creates a situation where governments can come in and champion whatever kind of shitcoin they want to champion to be a like national reserve currency, a CBDC, all the stuff that our friend Aaron Day talks about, which I think is largely accurate. This is all this stuff is really the setting of the stage for a complete government takeover of the space. So what we have to do, I think, is continue to revivify the crypto anarchist, the cypherpunk mentality. This is not to say that everyone has to be like a dyed in the wool like crypto anarchist or cypherpunk, but I think it really is important to think about the philosophy of the technology. And I think this is a key point. It's important to understand this philosophy so that you also have in mind to not just, willy-nilly YOLOing into whatever random shitcoin comes up in the space for the sake of it, just because you're like financially motivated. I think it is really incumbent upon us to maybe consider that we should be philosophically motivated as well. And that has personally kept me out of a lot of trouble over the years as well, because as a result of that, I do a tremendous amount of due diligence and try to look into the motivation of the founders of coins, etc. It's just a critical thing. Yeah, I think I'll leave it at that for now.
I think, yeah, I know we're coming up on the wall here, our heart out, as it were. But this is something that we probably would do well to continue exploring, and then maybe getting into the nuances of a little bit, and even with more concrete examples, which I can't wait to do. And for the few scammers that expose themselves and in snarky comments across social media, even recently, you bet your butt that you are exactly who I'm talking about, and don't worry, you've already been blocked and reported as such, and thusly. But yeah, like even just mentioning, just whispering of poof, the scammers are all around you. They begin lashing out and attacking in the self-preserve with motivation of self-preservation.
I think we hit a chord, my friend. I
Quickly.
think we hit a chord.
Yeah,
This is good.
yeah,
This means we're doing something right.
yeah. So shout out to the 99 scammers watching and the one honest person. We thank you for your patronage. This has been the crypto, Bitcoin, Ethereum, private, decentralized, peer-to-peer infrastructure and technology show. That's Sterlin over there. My name is Chair. We are here to prop you up. We will be back right here, same spot, wherever you are watching next week, always following the Logo Circle Online X Space. You can see our handles down below, scrolling so beautifully from right to left across the bottom of your screen. Do give us a follow, subscribe, turn notifications on wherever you are, and we will be back to talk to you again next week, if not sooner. Thank you,
Love
Sterlin.
it.
It's
Love it.
always a pleasure. Talk to you
Yep.
very soon.
Cheers, my friend. See you next week.
Oh.